The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the Our Culture, Our Stories podcast are those of the individual hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of the NAACP or any affiliated organizations.
He had called me up and said, "Hey, I got this great script. I want you to read the script, and find a role that you like, and let's make it happen."
Wait a second. Wait one second. Wait a second.
Bro, I had to pinch myself. I said, "Ain't no way Tyler Perry calling me asking me this."
Wait a second. So Tyler Perry calls you up, tells you read the script, pick out the role you like, and it's yours.
Yeah. Pick a movie and pick a role. And then, my people gonna call your people, and we gonna do the paperwork. And it's like you may have that a few times throughout your whole life, where somebody that you really respect is saying, "Hey, bro, I see you. Good job."
Tyler Lepley. Man, it is so good to have you here on Our Culture, Our Stories, NAACP Image Awards podcast series. Appreciate you being here. You good?
Absolutely.
Everything good?
For sure, man. This is my this is my first time ever on a podcast.
This is
my first podcast ever. Ain't that crazy?
What?
In a world full of podcasts, this is my first.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
We just spoke to Adrian Holmes from Bel Air. It was his first podcast. He said he hadn't done one. Man, we feel honored.
Yeah, for sure. You already know if there's if somebody's gonna be the first, it's gonna be y'all for sure.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about right there. So this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about everything. But, of course, this episode is Strength and Brotherhood. I am my brother's keeper.
Yeah.
Not am I. I am my brother's keeper. Man, congratulations on all the success.
I appreciate
You've
that,
been
bro.
doing your thing.
Yeah. We got Harlem out right now on Amazon. We have Duplicity coming out March 20th, also on Amazon, and a few things coming up after that. So right now we're right in the pocket.
Yeah.
So God is good.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Right in the pocket. That's what I'm talking
Sure,
about.
yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. How old were you? We're going to talk about Brotherhood.
Yeah.
But let's go back a little bit and talk about Tyler Lepley, the little boy. When did you know that this would be the trajectory of your life? Were you a kid and people are always saying to you, you should be on television, you should model, you should. How did all this come to be for you?
No, I think the first part of the question, I would say I probably didn't. There were different times where I noticed different things. I wouldn't say I noticed it as a kid. Looking back, hindsight is always 20/20. I would say that looking back, the writing was always on the wall. I was always a performer, so I always was in the talent shows, and I remember one time choreographing my own talent show, like my own routine and what I was doing.
What city were you in?
Right outside of Philly. Even when I was playing football, I played ball all the way through college. Even when I was playing ball, when I scored a touchdown, I was always playing to the crowd and whatnot, taking my helmet off, getting them involved. So I was always performing, but I never thought I was gonna be acting until I moved to LA, and I started personal training maybe 2 months into it. One of my clients had asked me to audition in something smaller. Hopefully, it never sees the light of day. But I was very. I am very grateful for it, though. They asked me to come in, audition. On paper, the role was just like me, but they was having some difficulty finding the person. So I went in there, read the sides, didn't really know what I was doing. I ended up booking it, and it was enough to pique my interest. This is maybe 15 years ago. And then at that point, I kind of threw myself in the fire. Took a little bit of money that I had from personal training, got myself into a class, got the headshots, and then you get deeper into it, do the reading, then find a voice coach, therapy. It gets as deep as you want to take it. So that was probably the trajectory of me discovering it and what I wanted to do with life for sure.
You've played a plethora of roles over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
When it took off for you, it took off. Are there any roles in particular that you felt really empowered you as a black man?
I feel like in a sense they all have in their own way. I think if I can maybe pick one out that stands out a little bit, we had talked a little bit about Benny and the haves and the have-nots. Shout out to Tyler Perry. Um, I remember that one specifically because it was one of the only times that I actually got a chance, or that we as an audience got a chance to see me play within the dynamic of the black family. We got a chance to see Hannah, who is his mother, and Candace, who was his sister, and Benny really operated as being the glue within that family. So I just thought it was, it did teach me a lot, just about being a black man operating within the family. A lot of times in some of the roles I played, you've seen the black man stand alone, but you haven't seen him go back to his household. Which is fine. I played a bunch of great characters. I've been blessed to play what I've been playing. But in the specifics of your question, I'll probably say Benny on the haves and the have-nots. He was a great role to play, for sure. Great character.
Were you surprised at the responses that you received from fans and folks who were watching that show?
Yeah, I would say that a pleasant surprise. As an actor, you never really know what you're going to get when you put it out there.
It's like creating a record.
Yeah, for sure.
You think it's great.
Yeah.
And it flops.
Yeah.
Or you think it's okay, and it's number one. It's a big hit. So you just never know.
The life of an artist.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a painting or whatever it is. You give people your creation. You never know if it's going to be felt. You never know how they're going to receive it. So I think to have the response be such a positive one, and what it was it was definitely just a learning lesson, because again, this is one of the first roles that I played in my career. So it was a great learning lesson for me, just in trusting the process. A, trusting your skill set, but B, also trusting your director. And if they say they got the shot, it's time to move on. And early on in my career, that was a difficult pill to swallow. You always want to do another take, but then you start honing in on the skill and what exactly it feels like when you get that take. And a lot of that comes from collaborating with your director.
What did you channel, if you channel anything, to play that particular character? Because Benny was independent, but yet very conscious of the family dynamic.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say Benny was a bit complex in the most simple way.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe him. He really was. For me, I didn't channel anything in particular in terms of anyone. I think for me, because again, I didn't grow up inside that same family dynamic, So I think for me, where I kind of go first is,
what was your family like before you go on?
Mine was very different. First, I was the only child, and my mother's white, but then also, I only say this for descriptive purposes to help you get a picture of what's going on. My stepfather's had me since I was like one. So he's my dad. That's my father for sure. But he was also white. So it was it was interesting to say the least. There were lots of things in terms of our culture that I didn't necessarily get within the inner workings of my immediate household, but. It's interesting how
I don't know. If
love is
the
yeah, maybe not, because I got it elsewhere. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't get it from the household. But what I was saying was, it's interesting how love is really the foundation of everything. Of course, as we get into what we're talking about, our brotherhood and our camaraderie, that's very important. I didn't really get that until I was a little bit older. Maybe middle school. Maybe middle school was when I started. I remember Mike Kason, I remember John West, James West. I start to see my community assemble itself at school and whatnot. By the time we get into high school, we're super locked in. My Uncle Mike, he's one that starts to come in there. But again, I was raised in a household full of love. And one thing that I love about my parents is that when I was going through what I was going through, even though they may not understand it, they was right with me. They learned, and they learned what they had to about what their baby was going through. so that they could support me specifically.
It's beautiful.
You know what I'm saying? When the time came. So, but what I drew from, it was interesting because again, I didn't come from the same household as Benny did, but I think the first place that I'll go to is, especially when you have a dynamic writer like Tyler Perry, is what the given circumstances are on the paper. It's given to us that Benny is an independent thinker. It's given to us that he's the glue of that family, and that he would give his last for his mama or his sister. So trying to embody some of the things that the writer has given me is the first place I'll go. And then in terms of where to draw from internally, I know what it's like to want to give your last to your family, regardless of what's going on. So, you draw from there, and you draw a little bit from what Tyler is bringing to it. And, in this weird way, you kind of start to paint your own unique perspective of who this character is. Because it's our job as actors to bring this thing off the page and make it 3D. The script is two-dimensional. We bring that third dimension.
Are there any particular people in this industry that you connected with that you would say we have a brotherhood nucleus of some sort? And how impactful has that been on you in the entertainment journey and just your day-to-day?
I would say,
And
there are a few that jump out to me, knee-jerk reactions. I'm a bit of I'm a bit focused, and I'm a bit of a homebody, so I don't have too many friends. Period. A lot of acquaintances, a lot of people I can call up, but I would say, even before I dive into this, I look at my brotherhood as something that's very, I hold it with high regard. You know what I'm saying? There's a real deep meaning to it, again, because I don't have too many of them. So with that being said, I would say that, right up. Yeah,
why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah, why is that? The homebody, where does that come from? Because I don't know if people think that either, and I want you to finish your thought.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're here for an hour. We're just going to kick it.
Yeah. We're just kicking it. Our culture, our stories, right?
Yeah, for sure. This is mine.
Where does that come from? Do you think that you prefer to be a homebody?
Yeah.
That you prefer acquaintances more so than more in-depth relationships?
I wouldn't say I prefer it. I would say that this is just kind of the way it is. I would say it like this. I don't want to sound like I'm definitely not like a pessimist or anything.
No.
I would say that, because it's a great question that makes me think about it. It's like a multi-layered answer almost. I would say the first thing that I think about is, why am I like this? I would say the first reason is I've just gotten used to it as an only child. I've gotten used to dealing with things alone. Not to say anything about my support system, because they're always there. It's just been like that since the womb. I've never had any. Of course I had friends, but it just started at a young age. And then I would say, just in terms of relationships, this is why just the dynamic of a relationship is, I just feel it on a deep level, even though it's not that serious, but it's just how it is. I would say that I've had meaningful relationships in my life that I've held up on a pedestal. High regard for, if you will. It could be significant other, it could be friend, could be a parent, or a guardian figure, aunt, and there has been like a major letdown. So what happens, at least for me in my experience, is you end up, the pain from the letdown is so much so that you don't want to open up again. And when you do, I gotta stop saying you. When I did, what I found is that I would be.
I've been there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm tracking. I've been there.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can say you
if
you want to.
Yeah, what I found, you plural, if you will.
Yeah,
it's like us.
Yeah.
What I found is that, like, even when I was going back into it, I would be like 1 foot in, 1 foot out almost. It's almost like, all right, all right, I'm gonna do this, but I'm already banking on the letdown again. And that's a terrible place to be in. You go into each of these relationships, and you're not both feet in. It's like it's not the real you. You know. So me working on that, and transitioning out of going into relationships with it's almost like a wall up. You know what I'm saying? It's like we can't do nothing like this. You know what I'm saying? And so, I wouldn't. It's interesting because I wouldn't even here I was going around like that, and on the flip side, like I would never even accept that. Like who would? You know what I mean? So I think as I transition out of it, this is a lifetime we're talking about here. So as I come out of hibernation, and I make sure all my relationships are meaningful and I'm showing up with both feet in, I can say that even having a few friends, real friends, is a heck of a step in the right direction for me. Because I'm the type, throw it all the way up. You know what I'm saying? It'll be me. I'll be like this till they feel dirt on me. And that's a tough. You destine yourself for a very lonely, isolated life. It's like I constantly try to work myself out of like the position of like, well, so be it.
Yeah.
Because it's not cool to be like that. But I would say, I don't know if I answered the question.
No, you did.
But that's kind of what I
you did.
So I would say that, like, I have a few in my real life that I'm able to call up. I'm able to, get their perspective to help me gain a proper one. Most of them are not in the industry, but I do have a few in the industry. Like I had developed a great relationship with my boy Alphonse Nicholson, who plays Low Murder in P Valley. We had hit it off that first year in season 1, and we have we stayed tapped in with each other on and off set, which is great. I just spoke to him maybe a few weeks ago, but anytime we're in town, we're always trying to lock in. And a great thing about it is, like, we're both fathers. He's been married for a while. I'm about to be married. I'm engaged. So we just have great conversation. Obviously, we're both artists, so we have great conversation and just unique perspectives that we can give each other.
Congratulations.
No, I appreciate that. That's important.
Yeah. So, Brotherhood, while it's important to you, it does not necessarily mean volume. It does not necessarily mean several people who are part of Brotherhood for you.
Yeah, I've always been quality over quantity. And the more the merrier. Of course, if we can build this thing into having a great big infrastructure of people that are all following the same, we're all in that same space, then cool. But and I've been hearing that for a while. All my old heads talk about, I can count my real hands on one hand. I can count my real friends on one hand. So I would say, I'm definitely more about meaningful relationships as opposed to, the multiple or just having a bunch just to have it.
What aspects of Brotherhood are important to you? What does it require for you to consider this is a brotherhood?
I would say one of the first things is accountability. It's easy for us, definitely myself included. I would probably anything I'm talking about if I was going to answer that question about my friends, like I would put myself in there first. You know what I'm saying? So it's like myself included. We got to be accountable for each other. It's easy to get bogged down by our schedule, especially when we're really busy. And someone's, one of your homies' daughters, birthday parties is important. Even on one hand, he'd be like, oh, what's she for? She's not going to remember it. It's like, yeah, but the community will, though. It's like us being here for each other is important. So I would say, one of the first things that I would say that we need to check off is accountability. And just, even though we're going to tell each other what our true feelings, I can also appreciate that, keeping it real, Also finding the balance within, not judging our people. If they really come to us with something that they're holding and it's heavy, especially if they're going through a lot of judgment with it and they care to share it with you, to try to listen to it with an open heart, or, you know what I'm saying? trying to. I think just having that full balance, because I know I jump all over. It's like, is it this or is it that? Do you keep it real or do you not judge? You know, I feel like the magic is in the middle ground. So you got to be able to keep it real while not judging at the same time sometimes.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
they don't necessarily, they can both be simultaneously occur.
Yeah, for sure.
Being honest is what keeping it real, I think, means.
Honesty, absolutely.
Yep.
That's the word I was looking for.
Is that the word you was looking for? Well, I'm glad I could assist. I'm glad I
See,
could
that's
assist.
that brotherhood
you
right there.
That's
You
it
feel me?
right there. Yeah, we tracking.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that you use any of that letdown that you talked about, sometimes showing up for people when they don't show up for you? You've had when you have had both feet in, and you realize that's not being reciprocated. Do you use any of those feelings or any of that pain that you've dealt with in relationships that you felt maybe didn't meet you? I won't say halfway, because I don't know if there is such.
Yeah, yeah.
It depends on
For
the
sure.
day.
Yeah,
Depends
how
on
you
the
looking
hour.
at? For sure, 70, 30, 50, 50,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Did
For
Teddy
sure.
P say something about that?
Thanks, yeah.
Another Philly guy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Do you use any of that? Do you think any of that letdown in your acting? How does it?
Oh, all of it. Yeah, all of it. I would say, this is one of my biggest blessings, is being able to be an actor. It's like I didn't come out here to do this. I was led to it. I remember I told you my I was a personal trainer. Like, he asked me to do that. So I would say that 15 years later, being in this space, one of the biggest breakthroughs I had, maybe a couple years into it, maybe by season 3 or 4, maybe even 5, but have nots. Like I was saying earlier, that this thing gets as deep as you want to take it. So one of my biggest breakthroughs is when I met my therapist, Gary, and I've been going to Gary maybe 10 years now. It's probably been a decade now, and I realized the reason it was a breakthrough with my acting is because I realized that I can use all of these feelings that I have, when it's necessary, and to have it and to have access to it is so powerful. Not only as a artist, but even just as a man, as a human, but like specifically as a man, when you really can, you can sit down, you can look at this whole just array of colors, and I can choose from any single one. You know what I mean? Like, it's powerful. Whereas before I was in therapy, I used to look at it, because again, I feel like with all of us, it's so deep. But like, my emotions run so deep. There's almost like an ocean of sadness underneath me, and it's so deep that it would end up almost like frightening me. Before I had practice with it, and before I could open it up, have access to it, and control over it, I would open it up, and it would just be a mess. I was making a mess everywhere, and this is where you popping off here and there. I was really just making a mess. So I used to run from it back in the day, or before I was more equipped with it, had some practice with it. So now, not only in life am I able to pick those out, but it's like, where I'm at as an actor right now, I'm working with, some of the most dynamic writers and creators in the game. You're talking about Tyler Perry, you're talking, Tracy Oliver, Katuri Hall, and the list goes on. I got a lot of stuff coming out. So, being able to step up to the plate when they're penning something that really demands it is empowering. Because here I am, it's like, now you're asking for it, and it's like, it's right there, because I got so much practice with it. And what I realized is that, so to answer your question, yes, I do use it all the time, every time, which is because it's what we're supposed to do as artists, emote, and not even just emote. We're supposed to feel and have it, tell the truth through our feelings, and it's got to be so real. I don't know. I just feel like when you're actually playing with it for real, it's actually happening. It's not like we're pushing the feelings and I'm trying to cry. Like, we're actually being moved to tears, and it just so happens that the camera's on. You know, so this is like what we're chasing. And of course, you know, it may take a lifetime. This is my life's work. You know, in my favorite book, they call this the master work. That's the Alchemist. That's what they call it in there. But yeah, so I definitely do use, you know, what I'm feeling in my work. You know, what a blessing it is to be an artist.
What prompted therapy? You said that you went before, and then sounds like you had a period where you didn't, and then you went again. If you don't mind, like, what prompted that? Why did you feel that was necessary, or was the first time someone else telling you need to go, and that's why
Yeah.
you went? Or
Yeah. So the first there was a, you know, so I maybe I explained it wrong, but when I went the first time, I never stopped. So, but what made me go was he's really like my mentor, but he's my acting coach. His name's Larry Moss, and he's just, I mean, he used to be a professor at Juilliard. So this is like, you know, he's like the sensei. It's like the grandmaster, you know. So whatever Larry says, you know, if he says read this, if he says take a class with this, like, you know, you just gotta take heed to it. Which is another great, just a great aspect of having a certain brotherhood and having mentorship. So he is the one who actually told me that he gave me a list of. He give you a whole Bible when you first start with him, but he gave me a list of therapists that he's worked with, had great experience with, that he sends all of his students to. I mean, of course, you don't have to use everybody, but, you know, it behooves you to pick somebody and find somebody that you work well with so that we can, you know, get to the next level of what's going on. So I actually did it for, you know, professional reasons. Because, you know, when you get in there, again, we talked about, you know, how we deal with things first. You know, it may be, you know, it may be here first. It may be the strength as opposed to the vulnerability first, especially when we're talking about protecting and providing, right? So when you're doing that, you may get jaded and looped into not being able to access the other when you call action. Keep in mind, we need it when they call action. If I need you to be weeping, I need to see it as soon as I call action, not when you're driving on the highway and you got an extra 30 minutes in the bathroom and you got time, you can get there. Everybody can get there. So I had seen kind of a hurdle where I needed to follow what Larry was talking about anyway. So that I was introduced for reasons as an actor, but after being in it for a few years, I started to realize that this skill set was showing up for me to be prepared in real life. Again, it's relationship based. A lot of what we work on. So yeah, I started for that, but I ended up, you know, it'll be a lifelong thing for me.
what might have been different, do you think, in your journey had you gone to therapy earlier than when you started? Anything stand out?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I wouldn't have gotten in as much trouble growing up. You know, I feel like the root of a lot of my trouble was just not being able to express myself. So you act out, you know, class clown, and I was getting in lots of fights and stuff like that. And I feel like having that as an outlet, or really, you know, basically having the skill set to know, put your eyes on exactly what you're feeling, and being able to articulate it very clearly, so that it's very easily digestible for anybody around. That just smooths a lot of things out. It definitely smooths out problems. Now, you know, if it may go left still, but it's not for lack of, you know, us being ill-equipped on the other side. Mm-hmm.
First thing that comes to mind when you hear the phrase strong black man. First things.
Yeah, first things that come to mind.
Things that come to mind.
I see what the stereotype may be, and then I see like what my idea is. So it's like a twofold thing. I hear what's going on outside, and then I get something coming to me.
Let's do the twofold thing. Let's do the twofold response.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. It's a lot like hearing our counterpart. I hear a strong black woman, not me hearing it, but I noticed that society looks at it like it's one thing. Anytime we hear strong and black, you know, for us, we're talking men. I think a lot of times people just think that we just handle things and don't have feelings. Almost like our feelings are not a part of the strength. strength is all physical, you know. And I would say that when we have a sense of vulnerability to go along or to pair with the virility or strength or manliness, it's like when you have both of those, it's like now we're talking about that to me, that's a real strong black man. You know, because you know, I got two sons. My oldest is 7, and
What's his name?
Leo, and my youngest is Zai. Xi, Zai, Tyler Lepley.
Leo and Zai.
Yeah, Leo and Zai. Jade is my daughter. So I got, and they all can interchange here, but this is just kind of like, you know, what we're talking about. We'll go down the layers. You know, when my sons come to me, there's lots of times where, you know, they need that soft side as well, for sure. They need to be talked to, and they need to be listened to, all that. But there's a lot of times they really benefit from, you know, teaching them their strength through resilience and not giving up with certain things. You know, Leo gets real mad if he messes up at soccer practice, but you know, being strong enough to get back out there, learn your lessons, listen to your coach and what he's saying, not just talk back because you're mad. Like, you know, he needs that sense of strength. You know, not allowing him to quit when he wants, because he tried to quit. It's so funny. He tried to quit the other day. Brought him off, gave him a little, you know, had his water for him, gave him a little two-minute pep talk real quick. He listened, wiped his tears off, got back out there. By the time he got done, he had thanked me for having that talk, because he's getting to the point now where he understands. He understands to get to the top, to hoist the trophy. The journey is there's lots of ups and downs. It takes hard work to be the winner. You know, so he's getting that. So anyway, he thanked me for having that strength with him, because he needed it. You know, on the flip side, you know, my daughter is the opposite. You know, and of course, just like the boys need both sides. You know, she also needs to get pushed back in there when it's time as well. But she really needs, you know, me to be there for her and to feel where she's coming from. You know, at 4, you can imagine what she's like. She got me wrapped around the finger. But so, you know, I say that to say, you know, to be, even if you just look at my kids, you know, Zai is a mixture. Zai is a good mixture of both. But, you know, I look at all 3 of them, and it really takes both sides of my strength in order to be there for all of their issues. If I just came with one side, no matter the side, it could be all the way soft. I don't know if you want, it's really not soft, but it could be all the way feelings, you know what I'm saying, or all the way brute strength. And it's like either side is without something that we need. You know what I mean? So it's like heads and tails, even though they're opposite, they're the side of the same coin, though. You really, you know, I really learned that you gotta have that middle ground in order to be equipped on both ends. Anyway, so I feel like that's really what a strong black man is to me. Someone who's got the yin and the yang.
I like that. The
Yeah.
yin and the yang.
Mm-hmm.
Which kid, Leo, Jade, Zai, which one is most like you?
Oh my gosh.
Which one is most like you, and what is it about that kid? You say, man, this kid
That's
is
me.
just like me.
It's funny because they're all like, I can see myself in different like
Different ways.
Yeah, but it's clear as day. That's me. So I would say so Jade wears her heart on her sleeve. You know, Jade is it's not that she's sensitive, but she's emotional. You know. I called her one of her stuffed animals, the eye popped off, and she was crying, of course she was going crazy, ended up getting it back on, and she got it, and she was happy again. And then like 5 minutes later, I called her over there in the corner. She was just like on the couch, and she had it. She was looking at it. She was just crying. And I said, "Sweetheart," I said, "Jade, what's wrong?" Jade, I called her Jade. I said, "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" And she said, "I just love the stuffed animal so much." You know what I'm saying? Of course, we gotta laugh at it, but it's like the depth of how she feels, like that emotional part. Like that's me to a T. Leo is like a natural born performer. My fiance always, jabs at me here and there because even when I'm talking to her, it seems like I'm talking to it seems like I'm
Audience.
talking to an arena full of the audience. Yeah, and Leo's the same way. Leo got Leo got this man, like he got this thing where he's just always performing. And he can memorize. He's super into like the scripts that I get. So he'll memorize stuff and he'll try to, redo it his own way. And he loves breaking down scripts with me. So like the way Leo is, he's like a natural performer. Loves to speak in front of crowds and stuff like that, which is pretty atypical for like a kid. So that's me to a T. And Leo. And then I would say Zai is just a bull. He is just so stubborn. He's gonna have his way, even if he's got to go through it head first. That's like the Aries in me. Like that's me to a T. So they all got a flash of daddy in them for sure.
When was the last time you dropped a tear?
Last night, probably. It's interesting. It's to the point now where, I can't really, I have control over it, but I have immediate access to it. So a thought will come.
You're free.
Yeah. So I have like an emotional freedom. Like, I don't know if it's a high emotional. It's not. I don't know if it's an IQ. I just had lots of work on them, and there's just a freedom and accessibility there. So it comes. You come at any moment, for sure. I was thinking about something
Last night.
Yeah.
Scale from 1 to 10. Mental health, 10. You're perfect. You are perfect. You have it all figured out, brother. 1, you ain't got nothing figured out.
Yeah.
Where would you say you are in this moment right now, 1 to 10?
I'm somewhere in between. I would like to say like towards the second half at least. I feel like I've done lots of work that's necessary that I can use. That's in my tool belt. It's not as a, it's definitely not as a like a bragging right or a flex. I go to therapy. You know what I'm saying? But like some people do. Some people say that and whatnot. And it's cool. But for me, it's nice to be equipped in scenarios that get sticky. And a lot of times we have differences with other people in relationships.
Life gets sticky.
You know what I'm saying? And you got to have especially for us, you got to have a way to walk through it. We got to know how to swim through these type of waters. So I would say, I don't know, maybe a 5 or a 6. What I realize is that it's it's like going to the gym. You know what I'm saying? You could be a bodybuilder, win all the awards, and you slack off for a 2 years straight, and that beer belly's right back there. So it's like, it's just like being in the gym. It's always nice to go touch up, even if things are fine or things are left, right, up, down. Just go check in. Sometimes I don't even really go for anything per se. Like I don't know what the end result would be if you had to have me write it down on paper. I just know that throughout the process, I'm improving. So I want to keep going in that direction. You feel me? Yeah.
First thing that comes to mind when you hear boys don't cry. Did you hear that growing up?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm balanced. I feel like on one hand that's a lie, because we're gonna cry. On the flip side, maybe right now, if it's time to get it done, sometimes I talk to my son about that. Like, there's a time and place for everything. And I go to my therapist for that, and I'm also able to access it at any given time if I want to within a relationship in life. But sometimes, if it's time to hit a deadline, it might not be the time for that. If it's, I explain this sometimes to my son, because he's boxing now. When I came out, when I was personal trainer, I was always a boxing trainer. So he's in it right now. He's nice. He's smooth with it too. But
Is that Leo?
Yeah, Leo 7. So he catches cases of the giggles here and there though, and he just be laughing for no reason and whatnot. And it's like it's cool to laugh. We have a great relationship, so we laugh all the time. But like he's understanding now after some time getting to 7, that there will be a point in time in life where laughter is not welcome. If someone came and slapped your mother in her face, it's time to protect your mom. You're probably not going to be laughing. You know what I mean? So compartmentalizing our feelings is also its own thing as well. So boys don't cry. I would say, we definitely do. That's a lie, but but other times you may want to take heed. It's balance, man. You got to have
Balance. Yeah. I think balance is the key word.
I think
today.
that's the key. I really think that's the key in life, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I think balance is the key. Historically, the media, film, television, has not necessarily done I think most of us would say, a good job at representing us in multicolor, if you will.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry, and I don't know what the process was. Maybe you could just share how you ended up with the role as Benny. Did you read for him, or did you? Because you hadn't been at it very long.
Yeah, maybe 2 years at the time. Yeah. For the Haves and the Have-Nots, it was old school. He was casting 2 shows at the same time. One was Love Thy Neighbor. It was a comedy. One was the Haves and the Have-Nots. They were both his first. Actually, no, I got to take that back. This is back on the Oprah Winfrey Network. The Haves and the Have-Nots was his first drama. But he was casting a few shows at the same time. I was going out for multiple roles on multiple shows. So throughout that process, I had probably went in over, 7, 8, 9 times over the span of 4 months. So it was a gauntlet. And, he had us out here. You do the thing. You go in. This is before we did tapes. This is before COVID and stuff like that. So you would actually go in the casting room, get a call back, maybe get a different producer session. Then he had everybody, maybe, 150 actors at the he had shut down the Andes Hotel and turned it into like a like a casting station. We're going from room to room and reading for roles and stuff. And then we went over to Atlanta, same thing. And then I ended up coming out on top as Benny. For Duplicity, this is 12 years later.
Did you remember what the audition? Do you remember any of the lines from the audition?
Nah, none of the lines. I remember one of the auditions that was in Atlanta when he brought a bunch of the actors over there was like a chemistry read. They had already casted Hannah, who was going to play Benny's mother. So she was actually reading at one of the auditions with us, which was nice. You go from reading from stranger to stranger to, oh, well, this is the person who's actually going to, be playing my mom if I get this role. So it's nice to start to develop that chemistry. But, man, this is 11 years ago. So I really don't even.
You don't remember much of that?
The lines, nah, not really.
Yeah.
I remember the process was the gauntlet. Duplicity, that's coming out this March, in a few weeks, March 20th on Amazon. That was a different process. This is 12 years later now. So we had already did 9 seasons of the Haves and Have-Nots. I went off, did 3 seasons of Harlem, then went off, did 3 seasons of P-Valley.
In Harlem, you were nominated for an NAACP Image Award.
Yes, appreciate it.
Last year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, congratulations.
I appreciate that. So then, I went off, did my own thing. So this one, he had called me up and said, hey, I got this great script. I want you to read the script and, find a role that you like and let's make it happen.
Wait a second. Wait one second.
Bro, I had to pinch myself. I said, ain't no way Tyler Perry calling me asking me this.
Wait a second. So Tyler Perry calls you up, tells you, read the script, pick out the role you like, and it's yours.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, again, this is 11, 12 years after, we started that initial project and relationship.
So what are you feeling in that moment, though? Because now you're getting phone calls saying, you pick out what you want. Hey, what do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been in the game a super long time. There are people who've been in the game for 19, 20 years, and then they're considered a overnight sensation because people don't know the journey. But it has not really been a long time for you.
Nah, yeah. So,
I mean, all things.
How do you feel in that moment? Yeah, of course. Yeah, no. I would say, it's just a great way to put it. It's a great catchphrase. I hear it all the time. The overnight success. For me, so this year, we just dropped Harlem. Harlem is out right now. Then we go, this is like, this is in a 10-month span. We go Harlem, Then in a couple weeks we go Duplicity. Then we go Goons. That's coming out in theaters this summer. Then we go P Valley. Then we go R&B. That's a Netflix film that I was the lead of. So this year, there's lots of people, over that five project run that will say, man, he just came on overnight. You know what I'm saying? We know that there's 15 years behind it. We're talking about that. So it's like, I always think that that's interesting because, to take us back to the moment. In the moment, it's like wow, like you'll catch moments where, you kind of see it happening in real time. Because truth be told, every day is just a grind. So it's like, when do you realize that it's like what other people are calling it as an overnight? The type of person I am, I just keep my head down. So, but there will be moments like these where you catch yourself, and I was like, wow, like even if I could slow it down in the moment, it was like, damn, though, he's just calling me up right now. And we've maintained a relationship throughout the years. So it's not abnormal for him to hit me up or me to hit him up. But like, for him to say, and he was doing a few of them at once, like he always does. He's always working. So he said, I got 2 scripts for you. I want you to read them. Tell me what you think. And if you're liking anything, I want you to pick a role, pick a movie and pick a role. And then, my people gonna call your people, and we're gonna do the paperwork. And in that moment, it's just like, wow, like I don't really look towards awards. I think it's a beautiful thing when my peers can recognize my hard work. But one thing that I do really appreciate outside of like, trophies and stuff like that is when, people that I really respect can, whether they say it directly or they do it through their actions, like, what he was doing right here. And they're able to say, hey, man, I've seen your hard work. I've seen what you've been doing, with me, also with everything else you've been doing. And I know what I'm going to get when I bring you on the set. I can trust in your skill set. I know how you operate. You're not a pain to be around. You're professional. And I know I'm going to get that. I know I'm going to get some work when you come up here. So go ahead and, you know what I'm saying, and go ahead and pick your blessing. And it's like, wow, you don't get that all the time. And it's like you may have that a few times throughout your whole life where somebody that you really respect is saying, hey, bro, I see you. Good job. Because that's what I take it as. Of course, it's great to go do what I love doing and actually shoot the movie. But, like, even outside of that, like, to have someone, and it's not even the name. We all know, like, Tyler Perry is one of the greatest of all time. He's like the GOAT. He's, like, literally the greatest of all time, in my opinion. But, like, outside of the name, like, the skill set, like, this is a man that knows exactly what is, like, good. For him to say that, like, you're doing good, it just means a lot to me, for sure.
It's like giving you your flowers while you can smell them.
Exactly.
How do you pay that forward? What do you do, whether it be activism or whether it be giving some other brother his flowers? In what way are you able to, or would you like to pay that forward?
I think, following in those footsteps. Somehow, one day I'm going to be able to do that for somebody. I ain't there yet. But, even towards the end of this year, I'm going to go into, we start production on a film that I'm producing. So it's like, we're already starting down that path. One day I'll be able to offer someone a role that I really respect. I think in the meantime, one thing that I can do to honor that and pay it forward is make sure that, when he gives me those opportunities that I hit it out the park. You know what I'm saying? I really show up almost over-prepared because somebody's extending this based on, your relationship and where he views your skill set. So I want to make sure the job is well done, And then B, like as I take it forward, whether it's putting in a good word on somebody's behalf, stopping, and a lot of times I have, it could be a PA or somebody who's doing makeup or somebody who's working with me on the set that's not yet in front of the camera. They have dreams of being in front of that camera. A lot of times they're actors. This is just, just like when I was an actor, my survival job was being a personal trainer. Their survival job is being a PA. At least they're able to be on the set. A lot of times they'll ask me my 2 cents or how did you get in, or what how can you steer me? I make sure I take more than a moment to actually sit down and really give them real game and things that I really use. I think one of the biggest things that I did to pay it forward is, I got a lot of information that I've acquired over the last 15 years, and a lot of people nowadays, not even just people, we're talking about artists and how do I pay it forward, amongst my artists. A lot of artists are affected by social media now, directly and indirectly. One of the worst ways is indirectly. And what I'm noticing is that it's warping people's willingness to do the work. Everybody thinks you can do a skit and get casted that way. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you have to be very skilled at what you do to be able to go into the room and win the job. Again, I'm being taught by Larry Moss, coming from Juilliard. You can imagine everything. Like, it just gets so deep. I'm still not done learning. It's still going to be a life full of more of that. But to get back to my point, as I see how it's so jaded amongst my peers, one of the things that I did is I created it's like a mentee program. It's like a master class. It's available if you go on my IG, like, it's available right to you. And it's like, it's so funny because it just came to me one day. And, me and my team sat down. It was probably like a month-long process to really tally everything that I knew, break it down step by step, and then sit down with the lights and everything and actually get the production, film it all, and get it to the place where it's at the click of a button now. Because a lot of people ask me straight up, it's like, well, what do you even do on set? People don't even know that you'll come here and have, it starts somewhere. You got to be going after something. You got to have some type of objective. People think you're just showing up reading lines. There's got to be something standing in the way of that you got to get around. This creates for the conflict. And then you got to be making active choices on how to get around it. Am I going to bulldoze it? Am I going above? Am I going around? Am I going to dig a trench and go underneath? Right? This is how we discover who your character is, by the choices they make. Your backstory, it just gets so deep. And I just noticed a lot of my peers don't even know where to begin. Like, they're hungry, like I was. So, even something like that, I created that for them. It's accessible if they want to have it. And just figuring out ways where I can pay it forward, because I've been so blessed and have so many people look out for me.
Rejection? How have you dealt with that in this business? Or has it phased you, or are you more of the thinking, it wasn't meant for me? Keep it moving.
Yeah, I get into this. I almost like hypnotize myself with like the idea of sweat equity. Like, I don't even really take it as rejection. Earlier on in my career, I did. And you go up and down and you start, riding the ebbs and flows of acceptance or rejection. You don't want to be in that place, So I would say, after 15 years, I've just seen where hard work, day in and day out, when you want to go to the gym, when you don't want to go to the gym, when you want to go to therapy, you don't want to go to therapy, when it's time to show up for the scene study class, So, like, all these things, just chipping away at it day by day. Like, it's all sweat equity. And eventually you will be able to cash in, even if it's just all on one huge roll, because you know exactly what you're doing, because you drop that sweat equity in over 15 years. But that's something to be learned, though. And I have a lot of peers that don't do well with it, and it makes them get depressed. They can throw their whole, they're just out of sync based on someone else telling them yes or no. Like, the idea of outside validation is very serious to a lot of people, and man, it does us good to not put so many eggs in that basket.
In a perfect world, all things being whatever it is you want them to be, what does your career look like 10 years from now?
It'll be at a place where I am taking the Will Smith Overbrook Productions, example. I'll be creating the things that I'm starring in. And this way I'll be able to, not only feed my family, but continue to, when you're employing your people, you're able to, feed them. So I want to be able to employ the people that I know feel just like me. I want to be able to work collectively with people, important projects that speak to me, that speak to my whole to my whole staff, and be able to bring them to life at the highest level, and be able to star on them and put my direct skill set and what I've been blessed with on this earth as an actor, infuse that into it, and really just have everybody in the village, bring their own unique flavor to it, and make waves from the creator's standpoint.
So you've thought about it because you answered that question instantly.
Yeah, it's in the process for sure.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, I got this. I can tell you, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I'm
boom,
just
boom,
clear.
boom,
I
boom.
see it.
Yeah. And it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
What would you say, Tyler, to your parents, something perhaps you've never said to them about the way they raised you and loved on you, something that you've not said to them and they were watching this?
What a great question. I would say, well, the first thing that I have to do is give my hats off to you just for displaying that level of love and patience, with myself as well as themselves. I mean, imagine being on a race and figuring out the directions along the way. You know what I mean? Like for them to do the job that they did with considering what they were given and considering the time it was and, what they may have heard around them. Again, mine is very, everybody's is specific, unique to them. We're talking about my specific one. So I would say, getting through that, getting through the outside noise into what matters on the inside, here. That's something that we all struggle with. And to do it with me when the stakes are so high, you're talking about raising a child, it just makes that it just makes it even more special, And I think, we didn't have a lot, but I would have never known. You know what I'm saying? Like they always did a good job of just, shielding me from the world, like the harshness of the world, and just giving me a place that I could really not just call home, but figure myself out. Because figuring out where I stand in life has always been a difficult thing for me, and it took a lot of work. And I'm clear on it now as a grown man, but growing up, we struggle with those things. So to not have
Instruction.
like an instruction manual.
Manual.
Not having an instruction manual because again, raising this baby is not their experience. So to do that without that instruction manual and to just knock it out the park, and giving me that springboard to be able to jump up in the air. Because, see, once I got in the air, I said, oh, okay, I see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? But, like, without that springboard, I would have never got up there. One of the hardest things for me to ever do was to leave everything that I ever knew in Philly to come out here and chase something I've never seen before. And it took a lot to have confidence to go do that, and I got that confidence from my parents. So I would say good. I would say, job well done. And I love you. Mom and Dad, I love you. For sure. It's a beautiful thing because we get to have those talks. They don't got to sit down and, of course, they're going to love hearing to hear. But we get a chance to have those talks. We all are very aware of the, just how life is so precious. You know what I'm saying? We give our flowers. That's why I loved this segment when I had read it. We had talked about, giving our brotherhood their flowers. And, I get a chance to do that with my family as well.
Caucasian mom, a Caucasian dad, who came into your mom's life when you were just a little.
Yeah, about one, yeah.
Yeah, a year old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got married when I was 4.
Do you think any of that you were trying to figure out who you were as a kid, did it have anything to do with growing up in a household? Not that they did anything wrong. Yeah. They sound amazing.
Yeah.
But do you think any of it had anything to do with you perhaps when you looked in the mirror not seeing someone who looked like your
you, yeah.
parents?
Not
How
at
much
all.
of that?
Not at all.
No?
I'm playing. Every.
I'm like,
Really?
Like, really? I'm like, whoa, what are you
No,
on?
no. But no, I really because
You're
it's
a
like
trip.
it's a every day, every day.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I say like, them giving me just that safe space to figure it out was the greatest thing they could have did because again without judgment, because me figuring myself out has been its own thing. You know, hairspray wasn't working. Figure out you gotta put the Murrays on, right? Then
The hairspray they were using wasn't
yeah,
working.
exactly. Like
This is
even
what,
figuring your hair out, figuring the lotion out.
Yeah.
So figuring out the external part, that's one thing. Because I remember, it's interesting. I remember my mom. I think my mom told me this one time. Because a lot of memories from childhood, obviously, we forget. I remember my mom telling me one time. When she came to pick me up one day, I might have been in second grade. I might have been in first grade. It was second grade or under, and something about the parents were coming in and picking the kids up, but they were coming into the classroom for some reason, and I forget the story, but my mom told me. She said, "Yeah, you asked me to stand in the back." Right? This is like an 8-year-old. So. I remember, and me putting that together in hindsight, like I remember always feeling very,
conscious?
super aware of the fact that
She didn't look like you.
that I don't look like my parents, and I'm the only one here. I was in like a suburb of Philly, so I was the only one here. And I was out not only it was more like this in elementary school. By the time middle school and high school came, there was more kids, so it's like, I had more friends that looked like me. But definitely, like when I was young, first, second grade, of course I was the only black kid in the class, but then I also remember seeing, even just seeing other black kids and their parents looked like them. So like it wasn't even just me standing out being the black one. Like I'm standing out as in like I'm the only one who doesn't look like their parents. Wow. And I remember... Wow. How about this? How about this for not having a pamphlet on how to deal with stuff? Yeah. Okay. I just got to keep it real because we just sharing our stories, and
culture,
me
our
figuring
stories.
myself out was like, I'll never forget the day I realized, because I always knew that, okay, look at me, look at you. Like, all right, my teacher's different, parents different. Okay, cool. Like, all right. I don't know what's going on, but I know something's different. Don't know how to articulate it because, again, I don't have an older brother. I don't have an older cousin. I don't have a dad, mom. No one's going through what I'm going through. So I remember in second grade, I remember I'm on the bus ride home, and my boy, I'm going to keep his name. I'll omit the name because he didn't know what was going on either. But he was third grade. I was second grade. I looked up to him, my boy, white boy. And I remember he came, sat down in the seat. We're on the ride home, and he said, "Hey, do you know what a nigger is?" And I said, before I could say no, he said, "Well, that's what you are." Got back to whatever he was doing. And before I knew it was time to get off the bus, he said, "All right, I'm going to holler at you. I'm going to talk to you later." And I remember being on the bus. I just remember being quiet. I remember being on the bus, like all the way home. Got off of my stop. I was still cool. But like it was starting to dawn on me like a little bit, like, you know what I'm saying? Like there was something negative about it. It was like a negative connotation with it. Keep in mind, I never heard this before, growing up in my household. You know what I mean? So I'm like, but I got just not know though. And I had a long walk all the way back. I lived at the end of the road, Bradley Road. And I remember by the time I got into the house, I started crying. I remember my parents were like, "What's going on?" And they did their best to be, they was with me and whatnot. But I just remember like that was one of the first times it got real about like, like to some people like my skin color means something. To some people like it's meaning something negative. So like that was like, so I just learned a lot that day. Of course, homeboy didn't know what he was talking about. He probably was just regurgitating what he was saying. It's crazy. He ended up asking me for a job when it was all said and done later on in life. He had seen the shows and whatnot. He need a job now. No, but I said to say like he wasn't even being malicious. Like he was trying to be informative. So it was just like, man, it was just a hell of an experience to try to figure myself out. And then, to stay in the pocket and realize, later on in life, when I was surrounded by my brotherhood and when I was surrounded by, the love from people that look like me, and I could understand like my culture and what's going on, like then I started really understanding that this is the highest blessing. When it was introduced to me back in second grade, it was coming as an insult. We know what comes with with being black, but we also understand what comes with being black. It's like this is the highest blessing, you know what I'm saying, ever. And, being with my people and having the ability to, be listened to and talked to and pay it forward, you know what I'm saying, be here for you, vice versa, through whatever we may be going through, second grade or, you know what I'm saying, you're talking about going back to Michigan, like whatever, you know what I'm saying, this is part of it, whether we know each other, whether we neighbors or whether we, you know what I'm saying, we just see each other in passing in this thing called life, we locked in. That's what our brotherhood is to me.
We know what comes with being black, and we know what comes with being black.
That's right. That's a bar, huh?
That's a bar. Hey,
I gotta bring that.
That's a bar all
For real,
day.
though. That's like my experience, That's why I always preach like this yin and this yang. Like I don't know. It's like I can only see it. I can only see the totality of my experience.
Tyler Lepley, man. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate you, bro. Just special thank you to just the platform, man. The NAACP for what they do from the work within the community to the podcast like this, obviously the award shows celebrating us on the grand scale like that, from top to bottom, just honoring us to give us just the space to be ourselves, We're not it's not all one shade, it's not all one idea. And to be accepted no matter the hue of the blackness, we're all accepted over here. And we feel that. The community feels that. Like there's very few places that we know we can call home, and the NAACP is one of those places. So I just appreciate you, and I appreciate the platform for always loving on us. For real.
On behalf of everybody at the NAACP, the NAACP Image Awards, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the Our Culture, Our Stories podcast are those of the individual hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of the NAACP or any affiliated organizations.